people does not trust someone that did not live in their house.
Yeah.
They come and say like, well, what do you really know? I understand, I respect your expertise as an AI expert and engineers and how sophisticated and scientific the projects that you run before. But like, you don't feel my pain.
Hello, welcome to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Each episode, we bring you a conversation with leaders across the healthcare industry, exploring topics ranging from new treatment techniques and interventions to novel service delivery methods and business models. And now, your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab U Practice Solutions, a leader in patient engagement and retention strategy. Let's explore the possibilities of a new healthcare.
Well, hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Better Outcomes Show. I'm your host, Rafi Salazar with Rehab U Practice Solutions. And let me ask you a question. Do you want to differentiate your healthcare technology, your device, your software, or even your clinical organization from competitors? Do you want to align your solution, your service, your software, or whatever kind of healthcare service you're offering with your targeted stakeholder? Do you want to create a consistent message that drives business, as in sales conversations, qualified sales conversations to your organization? Do you want to leverage industry insight and expertise to identify your most valuable healthcare stakeholder and how your software, your solution, your service is best situated to provide value for them? If the answer to those questions are yes, then great. The main question is, how do you actually develop an effective positioning strategy to drive those conversations, those leads, those conversions to actually bring money into your business? It all starts with a solid positioning. And we can help you do that at Rehab U Practice Solutions with our Healthcare Positioning Alignment Workshop. We basically help you answer the question, value to whom, so that you can develop an effective value proposition. Different stakeholder perspectives in healthcare will determine what they consider valuable and the outcomes they seek from healthcare services, from vendors, from software, whatever it is. By narrowing down that value to whom question, you'll have a clear idea of how your technology, your device, or even your healthcare service is positioned to solve the problems faced by your targeted stakeholder. If you want to learn more about that, head on over to positioning.rehabupracticesolutions.com. That's positioning.rehabupracticesolutions.com. It's basically a 90-minute workshop with me, and at the end of it, you will have a solid strategy that's going to actually help you drive sales conversations, qualified leads into your inbox and onto your calendar so that you can do what you do best, which is serve your targeted stakeholder. So there's that. Learn more at positioning.rehabupracticesolutions.com. Alrighty. So it is no secret in healthcare that we've got a very complex issue. And a lot of the problems that we find ourselves dealing with within the healthcare industry, specifically in Western healthcare, cannot be solved by a single individual, by a single person, by a single entity. Obviously, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's 4 different stakeholders, and each of those different stakeholders have varying perspectives and value drivers for them within the context of a solution for whatever the problem is. Call it rising cost of care. Maybe it's an access issue. Maybe it's a payment and reimbursement issue. There is a lot of different problems in healthcare that all kind of convalesce with the main problem of healthcare being super unaffordable, low access, and really inhuman, right? A lot of times patients feel like they're being run through a checklist. Clinicians are feeling burnt out and leaving the industry altogether, leaving their professions altogether. So the question is, who can fix that for healthcare? I've mentioned this a few times on the show and on a few LinkedIn posts that it's very difficult for people within or organizations within the industry to really make radical change. A lot of times disruptions, innovations, etc., come from outside of that industry. And usually it's something that is working in another ancillary industry and just being transposed on this industry. So my guest this week, Mohammed Al-Wazair, is a co-founder of LineDance.ai. And we talk a little bit about what LineDance.ai does. He's a programmer by design, an AI engineer, by trade. And we have this conversation not so much about what his product does and how they're doing things within healthcare, which is pretty cool. But we talk about the kind of the high level vision of, okay, there's a problem in healthcare. Who is best positioned to help solve it? Obviously, we don't want to go too far one way where you're cutting out stakeholders like patients and providers. But I think there is a role to play, a role to be had for outsiders from the industry that maybe are programs. We know we talked with Paul Singh a few episodes ago from Strata PT, and he's a tech guy too that's doing something now on the RCM or the revenue cycle management side in the PT industry. And it's really just taking the playbook that's worked for him in other businesses and other industries, and he's transposing it into healthcare. Now, obviously, that becomes very complex. And Mohammed and I talk about some of that complexity, that you can't just transpose something that worked in, say, auto sales, for example, and transpose it into healthcare, because there are a lot of moving pieces and regulations. So the reality is it's going to take collaboration from those internal stakeholders, from patients, providers, from payers, but it's also going to take the insights and expertise and innovation coming from outside of the industry. So we have a pretty interesting conversation talking about this idea of who fixes healthcare. How does it happen? It can't just be one side or the other. It's got to be a blend. So hopefully you enjoy this conversation. We talk a little bit about artificial intelligence as well and how that's going to shape healthcare. So without further ado, here's Mohammed from Headliner.app talking about who fixes healthcare. Well, hey, Mohammed, welcome to the show. How are you?
How are you doing today, Rafi? Thanks for inviting me over.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. I'm excited about it's funny, you know, when we chatted a while back and you mentioned something on a call that was just, you kind of mentioned it in passing. You're like, oh yeah, you know, the people that are in healthcare aren't going to be the ones that fix healthcare. And I thought like, oh man, this is the potential to be a really cool and interesting topic. So before we dive way too into that and, you know, who is going to fix healthcare and the solutions that are out there, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what brought you to what you're doing now with Line Dance AI?
Thanks, Rafi, for this beautiful introduction. I'm Mohammed Al-Wazir, and I'm the founder of Line Dance AI with its first product in the market, Mobility. My background is in AI engineering, quote unquote, which is like, why are you in healthcare podcasts? But we work using our technology that we developed in the musculoskeletal care industry and healthcare, and we learned a lot about the healthcare, bringing my deep technical expertise as an AI engineer into the healthcare market, and specifically into the musculoskeletal care market, and learned about the challenges and the problems of doing this since a while right now. And we start formulating different point of views about those challenges and what's happening in them.
Yeah. So backing up then, we were talking about how basically, if I remember the conversation correctly, we were talking about some of the problems in the musculoskeletal space and physical therapy in particular. And we mentioned, or you mentioned, how those who are closest in proximity to the problem are usually not the ones in the best position to fix it. And in healthcare, it makes a lot of sense because the people that are experiencing the problem every day, providers and all that, they're in the middle of doing healthcare. You know, they're not in a position to fix the problems. They might see the problems, but sometimes, as I mentioned on the show before, it's hard to read the label from inside the pill bottle. So in regards to that, like, kind of what's your take on that? How do you see the solutions coming to bear that are going to be effective within the healthcare space?
Well, this idea, when we talked with like, ton of providers and ton of our advisors that we are working with in the industry, when we're trying to formulate how mobility should look like and what kind of problems mobility could really focus on, and building our designs and our understanding, as like we say, we found out that like the point of views of the key players in the healthcare industry, from providers to patients, including their families, and payers and regulatory bodies, and we can name the rest, is very different from people that is coming from outside. I'm as an outsider, right? And I'm proud that actually I'm an outsider, that I was not like in the healthcare industry since a very long time, since like a decade or so. Uh, can started to tell them like, hey, what if we did this differently, right? I'm seeing that the real problem here is one, two, and three, and four, right? Um, and then I get this answer, hey, oh, but there is this regulation that supposed to do da 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 da. So uh, we'll make this solution not the right thing or not the best thing that like we can use at this moment. What you are proposing, while we are brainstorming. Let's underline that. Yes, we need to respect the regulations definitely, but uh, but in the brainstorming, while we are trying to find a solution to different challenges and the problem, we need to have a broader point of view and broader view, not to narrow it down. And from there, we can narrow it down and uh, alter the different solutions to the challenges and the problems where it can fit into the current climate that like we are in. And we were not able to do that. There is nothing wrong with that, definitely for them, but I meant it as like they are living and breathing by regulations,
Yeah.
what they've been used to. They are extremely busy seeing the patients. Patients are extremely busy with their life too. The challenges that different other stakeholders have, like the payers and the mandates that they have that they need to fit into. So all of this are a huge amount of knowledge that makes them somehow chained to the to uh, trying to explain myself better here, but what I mean by change is that's like slows them down. Eventually,
Yeah.
they may arrive there, right? But slows them down. Me as an ignorant that is coming into the game and with his expertise and sees this like, well, if we did this, this will be something fantastic. I'm not shamed by that.
Yeah.
So we are coming from the post extremes. So we balance each other.
Yeah.
Building up that's like, okay, I'm bringing this, you are bringing that, and then we're gonna get at the end of the day eventually to be in the middle and being able to make or provide a solution that is fantastic and can be extremely helpful in the different challenges that we have in healthcare. And that's why we built to that point of view is the people in the industry and the key stakeholders are the one or only the one that is authorized or can fix uh, the healthcare? I don't believe so. And that's from my personal experience and from the other examples that I see in the industry. There is a lot of successful companies and very successful even point of view and literatures about the healthcare that has not came from healthcare at
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
even with how complex our system here in the US is.
Yeah. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he's not a healthcare. He's a tech guy as well, and he said, "Well, like the problem, one of the big problems in healthcare, and we were talking about the Change Healthcare cyber attack and what that caused, all the downstream problems that it caused for providers." And he said, like this was not a healthcare limitation. It was not a regulation limitation. Like this was a business limitation that could have easily been avoided by building in another tech solution here or putting another fail-safe in here, and it just wasn't done. And it did kind of open my eyes to like, oh man, oftentimes those of us in healthcare, we think about the problem in healthcare as healthcare providers, and that's all we're seeing. And you and other people like you that understand the tech side, even understand the business side, can look at the problem and walk away with a solution that is very simple. And then it's just a matter of trying to figure out with providers, okay, how does this work within your workflow, or how do we build this, like you said, to kind of get to that a solution that is still simple, but that fits within the context of what providers are working with, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree on here. But if even I drove more on this fantastic bantering that we were having and turn it into that beautiful podcast. Um, uh, but are the people seeing that? That's a very important question. So is provider able to see that?
Yeah.
Usually, people does not trust someone that did not live in their house.
Yeah.
They come and say like, well, what do you really know? I understand, I respect your expertise as an AI expert and engineers and how sophisticated and scientific the projects that you run before. But like, you don't feel my pain.
Yeah.
Really, your payments has not changed like me, right? You are not suddenly in need to see an extra 30% or increasing your workload by extra 30% overnight, right? And managing all the rapid changes that's happening around our operation, right? So how could you? And what I'm vouching for here is like, well, a lot of people is trying, and we all want healthcare. It's something that's very important in our life, right? It's what allows us to do everything that we like. What allows me to be in the AI engineering in the field that like I appreciate and that I'm actually earning from it. Until this company all based on it that like Linedance AI that we founded, right? So touches everyone's life, but when the problems keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger day after day, why don't we really give a chance to the people that are coming from outside the industry with their different point of view that could make us see something that we did not see before? Because like, if we are capable to do that, and there is nothing wrong with not being capable to do that. But if we are capable to do that, why do we still have all of these problems that we are having today?
Yeah.
Right? Why do we still have like, a hefty legacy system? And by legacy, I don't mean old technology, but I mean that like it it does not fit into the new experiences that like we want to create. It does not fit into the new mandates that we have for the operations. Healthcare today is operating in a way that is very different from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That is extremely different from 10 years ago, right? And there
Well, and
are
in a
some
lot of cases, the systems people are using are from 15 and 20 years ago.
exactly. While they are changing the user interface, the color, they make them fast. They are shifting them from being on the desktop to being on the cloud, and even today to the AI, right? But still the same exact look for the problems, the same exact look for how operation should look like, instead of like instead of like what is happening today from an operational point of view and from an experience point of view. And I believe it's not really being considered, and it needs to be considered if we will have a chance. And the different point of view need to be integrated if we were going to have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a good point that a lot of, we're not going to name any names here, but there are a lot of companies, big software providers in the healthcare space that might update their branding. They might make it look prettier. Like you said, they might even put it in the cloud or bolt on a solution here, bolt on a solution there. But if the underlying thesis of why they're building it or how they're going to implement it is based off a business model from 20 years ago, it'll look pretty, but it won't actually solve the problem that we've got in healthcare, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly the point. Yes.
So then backing up then a little bit, I guess let's kind of dive into that a little bit. So what would you say is that big problem that we need to address, or like the fundamental piece that we need to look at when we're thinking about building these solutions, or like what comes next and how we fix it?
Yeah. Look, there is always a starting point for everything. Let's agree here on one thing. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but let me put it out first and see if we can agree or not. Healthcare in the United States specifically is an extremely complex equation.
Oh yeah.
and has ton of variables into it. But uh, interdependent relationships between those variables, right? In a way that's like it's a contiguous system, but everything in this system is attached to each other in a
Yeah.
way that you cannot take a specific module out and deal with that module and put it, fix what's in it and put it back, and then everything will be okay. When you do that, everything flows up.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So our system is like an onion, has a core, has layers around it. And from the analogy of the onion, if the core has a problem, like there is a worm inside it, or there is rot or something like that, as an onion, done. The onion is done. All of it is not
Yeah.
is not usable. So I felt a point of view where I said, okay, what is the core of our healthcare onion that we have today? If we are able to reach to that and understand that and start defining parameters around that, and we drop all the other variable for now, and the complexities around it and the complexity of that very big equation, and we put our focus here and ask it ourselves a question. And I will ask you a question. I know that this is not like normal, but let's use your deep expertise here as a provider, and you work it with in the healthcare regarding the government when we were in VA and in the private healthcare sector too. So where have you seen healthcare being done right?
Yeah. I think the big thing there would kind of be defining like, what do we mean by right? Do you mean like patients getting better? Do you mean like positive like revenue models or super profitable companies? I think it's like when we talk about right healthcare, it's a very broad question, right? Like you go a lot of different directions with it.
Yep. So that's exactly my point, is that we don't know what is healthcare done right. No one knows. And
Well, we all have different ideas, right? Depending on where you are. Insurance
yes,
companies are going to think this is right. Providers are going to think that's right. Patients are like, just get me better.
yes, exactly. And even where you are geographically too, not only where you are as a stakeholder, but like, oh, if you are from Canada or UK or even Egypt or somewhere else, healthcare done right is not defined.
Yeah.
We don't know what is that. And for me, healthcare done right is coming back down to this core of the onion. If we were able to define that core, we will be able to define what is healthcare done right.
Yeah.
And I got like an understanding about what this core could be from a personal story. My wife goes for her like wellness doctor, right, since last decade, right now, and we changed a ton of payers. There is not ton in the market, but I mean a lot. You get the point. Um, but every single time we were trying to decide about a payer, we were not deciding because of the premiums, or because of the coverage, or because of different other benefits. It was always coming down to one thing: that is this a specific provider that my wife goes to since a decade available in the network of this payer or not? So I wondered, like, while we were working in healthcare, like I said, they're like, hey, what's going on? What
Yeah.
is
Why
it?
don't you just pick another doctor?
Yes, there is a lot of good doctors, right? What if we live in Dallas, Texas. So what if we live Dallas, Texas? So went somewhere else, other city, for any reason. So what are you gonna do? So why this specific provider? And she gave me an answer that had really changed how I'm looking at things. She said she gives me enough time.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, what do you mean? She said, she asked us a lot of questions that is related to my financial situation, questions that is related to marital problem, questions that is related to work stress, questions that is related to that, to that, to that. And she asks me and converse with me about anything that could impact my health or my wellness, anything that could be helpful for her to analyze and guide me on my healthcare journey. I feel so comfortable talking to her, and I trust 100% that if there is anything that I missed or forgot to say or could be important while she is trying to help me in this journey and how to be well for the rest of my life, hopefully, is that she would be able to catch it.
Yeah. That's such a
But
powerful thing too.
yes, and it made me think, like, look at that interaction. Look at how powerful this interaction is that makes a patient for full 10 years of his life choosing the other parameters of his health care based on that very simple, narrow, it could look at as a very
Yeah.
simple, narrow decision and make me formulate that point of view of like the onion is the healthcare. The core of this onion is the interaction between the patient and the provider. Without this interaction, nothing else happens in the healthcare. And if we were able to get this interaction right, all the wrapping layers around it need to be serving this interaction, not to be standing against that definition, which could be anything of that interaction. So yeah, who is gonna fix the healthcare? How is healthcare is being done right? I'm gonna change those questions into what is the real core of the healthcare. And I believe that this real core is the interaction between the patient and the provider specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've always told people like healthcare at the end of the day is a human experience. It's one person that's, healed in the art or skilled in the art of healing, helping another person on their own unique, health journey or something like that. So I think that's a pretty valuable insight to frame the context, right? Like we're not going to fix the problem of healthcare if the solutions we're building aren't addressing that specific issue of the provider sitting across from the patient and trying to help them. So, I guess in relation to that, like, what do we need to be focused on then when it comes to building a solution to, quote unquote, fix healthcare?
Well, as complex as this question is, I believe it's this interaction. What is the solutions that could help us, or what is the new designs that we can provide into the market where we can, and I'm talking from my domain of authority, my domain of expertise, right? The technology.
Yeah.
Uh, there are some solutions that are not technological by any nature, and it has its own people that they can talk about it. But solutions that are focused in general on this interaction, solutions that is helping the providers to be extremely efficient, solutions that is helping the patients to uh, to find the right access, to find the right people, the way that they are looking for. Solutions that start us all the way from simplest task like scheduling an appointment to the most complex tasks like documenting the journey that this patient went through and his medical history.
Yeah.
So in all the angles, even technologies or solutions while you are delivering or conducting that specific care. I will say it frankly, like, and let's drop everything else. As important as they are, but I don't think that everything else is is the point of focus right now. Let's keep focusing on the core, and the core, as from my point of view, is this interaction between the patient and the provider. So let's keep focusing the solutions here, right? But is this is really the responsibility of one stakeholder in this big group of stakeholders or not? I believe it's the responsibility of all of us,
Yeah.
and everyone has a role. Everyone has a role. So the providers, for example, I don't believe that they need to be searching for the solutions, but they are the one that needs to put their challenges and the problems out there, so that the people that are having the expertise and in a general point of view and a bigger point of view or a different point of view can come in and take out of that and deliver something that is different, that could help them and help their patients. And when they are delivering it back, that providers are more open, so they can try new things and see if there could be something different that could happen on the level of that interactions. Patients themselves is like while they are trusting their providers and understanding that the boundaries of the safety is not being touched, and that, like, I'm not going to give you some kind of medicine, for example, that had never been tested and stuff like that, and following all the regulation, all of that, saying that, and this trust is there. And he trusts his provider, and his provider telling him that we are working hard actually to make changes in general, not like for you specifically. And this is one of the changes that, like, we are thinking about. Would you like to be part of it? Would you like me to let me document you like this instead of like that for testing purposes, right? Would you like me? I will have a camera here that can track, for example, my something that I'm doing with you in a way that is like, going to help me for training and help me for this and help me for that later on and enhance my operations. And are you open for that? And we say, no, I don't want to be having in a room that have any kind of cameras regardless, right? But like, so everyone will have a role. This is what I'm trying to say.
No, I
It's
think
not
that's such an awesome way to frame it too. Like, patients sometimes are kind of hesitant. I don't want to be videotaped, or I don't want to I don't want to have this done, but framing it in this way that you did, like, listen, this is going to help me as the provider spend more time with you, or really give you what you need, or be able to focus entirely on your problem. Like, that's such a good way to frame it. I'm gonna have to log that one in the memory banks for later.
a good one.
Yeah. So what about, so I mean, I guess ultimately you're talking about like solutions that you can put in that interaction that can be brought into that patient clinician interaction, that kind of, we said efficiency, but I think a lot of times when clinicians hear efficiency, they're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have to bill more. What is this gonna do? But you're really talking about freeing up time that the provider can then use on their patients, right?
Yeah, that the key thing in my story that made me formulate this point of view was actually my wife saying, my provider, my doctor gives me enough time. The patient value the time that's being given to them, and when they understand that they are not being rushed, that's like, don't worry, I didn't forget anything. Don't worry, I asked you the most of the question that should be, and you have time to request or I don't know how to say this in a better way, but as a patient, you have time to ask me to educate yourself, right? And have a better understanding about your situation and about your status, right? That you are not misinformed. We will not be able to do all of those things if the patient does not have enough time.
Yeah.
And don't hear me wrong. I understand that providers still running the business at the end of the day. Very specific and a special type of business, but it's still a business. And they want to see enough patients because This is how they are making money. So I made this kind of small little equation, is that in order for really for this interaction to work well, we need to find the balance between enough time and enough patient. So
Yeah.
patient need to have enough time, providers need to have enough patients, right? Both of them together, not one or the other, so that we don't go unnecessarily or take unnecessarily time with the patient, or shorten the time too much in a way that is the patient is affected. And every single metric that we know in the market will also be affected with that at the end of the day. That's like, you can call it like the quality, the costs, the outcome, the down one, two, three, four, and so on and on and on and on will be affected when this time is not balanced in the correct way.
Yeah.
And and this is what makes it about efficiencies. Efficiencies in everything. You have a lot of patients. Our population is getting older and crossing the 65, and the prevalence is getting bigger, and the providers numbers are limited. We're increasing them, and from one challenge to another, the number varies a little bit up and a little bit down, like what had happened in COVID. So yes, those are challenges, but efficiencies can help us find areas where we can avoid those challenges, even in the current climate. Sometimes people like think that, hey, we need to burn the temple and rebuild it
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the scratch, right? I'm not I'm against this point of view, because there is too much here to lose,
Yeah.
right? There
Well, and
is
like you said, it's all so complex and intertangled. You can't unravel it very easily.
Yeah, and that everything is affecting everything. So if you took one component out and totally changed it and you put it back into the machine will not
Yeah.
work. It's going to block. And that's a huge risk. But with the part where changes could happen and create an impact even within the current climate, and have the potential for what could happen in the future. Not necessarily that have the potential for something specifically that we wanted to happen in the future, because we don't know really what is going to strongly work and what is not. We have predictions, well-informed predictions, but they are still predictions. When does the news channel say that's going to rain tomorrow and
Yeah.
it didn't rain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I mean, I think this has been wonderful. I always end with this question because I think we've covered a lot, and I think it's very, very valuable. If there's just one or two main points that you would want a listener to walk away with from the episode, what would they be in regards to this problem of like fixing healthcare?
Uh, One of the points will be how this episode specifically had started. Um, Not necessarily that the people that are in the healthcare should be the solution finders for the challenges that is happening in the healthcare.
Yeah.
The second main key point here is the where is the core function of our healthcare. And this core function for me is the interaction between the provider and the patient. And this interaction should look like patients have enough time, providers are having enough patients.
Yeah.
And everything else can be built in this interaction on the top of this motto or this mission, maybe, or vision, or like as people may call it. So the core function is this patient provider interaction, and if we got this right, this could give us a chance to get a lot of other things in healthcare right.
Yeah.
And this is the third one. I know that you asked for two, but the third one is that there is not a single stakeholder that have the responsibility of fixing healthcare, but we all
Yeah.
need to work on it. So starting from the families and the patient to all the way to the payers and the regulatory bodies and the policies of the different countries. But everyone has a role,
Yeah.
and this role has a domain of authority, and we need to respect that domain of authority, and everyone need to influence his or her domain of authority in a general, broad, abstracted term, for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think that's a wonderful ending point there. So, Mohammed, thanks so much for being on the show. Where can people find out more about you, connect with Line Dance, learn about more about your ideas?
So we have a resources section on our company website. It's humanizing.com. And line dance is coming from the line dancing that you usually see in the movies, or if you are living in Texas, you're
Yeah, I was about
familiar.
to say Texas Line Dance.
Yes. So it's linedanceai.com. We have a resources section in there where we publish our point of views and our ideas, and definitely talking about the different products that like we built on the top of our human movement comparative analysis technology that like we are using specifically with physical therapists today and on the whole musculoskeletal healthcare in the future. We also have our page still called Line Dance AI in LinkedIn, and we publish and conduct conversations in there with our fellow technologists and our fellow healthcare providers and experts to enrich more of those point of views and and even communicate their point of views to that may influence or impact our point of view so that we can reach to a better outcome.
Yeah. Awesome. And we'll link to all of that in the show notes and so people can go find and connect with you. So, Mohammed, thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mohammed from Line Dance AI. I think one of the takeaways after listening to this conversation again and thinking about, okay, this can potentially be a controversial idea to say that people from like healthcare is not going to fix itself, right? The ideas and the innovations that are going to fix healthcare, the problems that we see in healthcare are really going to come from outside of the industry, whether they be through paralleling or copying something that worked in one industry and bringing it over here, or just a different way of thinking that is provided by maybe somebody in tech or something like that. I think the big thing that, and even Mohammed said this, like it is going to take a cooperation between internal stakeholders within healthcare and then these innovators coming from the outside. And I think one of the big things that he said at the very end, which I think kind of drives it home, is that we need to get around the idea of like, what is the ultimate vision for healthcare? What does fixed looks like? What does fixed look like? And I think at least for me, and I know for people that listen to this show, and if you're listening to the show, you know that I'm going to drive this point home a lot. And even Mohammed said it, like the fundamental component of a healthcare engagement is the interaction between the clinician and the provider, because that relationship really is the foundation for good healthcare services, for quality healthcare services. So all of these solutions, technologies, tools, whatever, need to be implemented with that in mind at the center. And sure, we can deal with the reimbursement and how do we get paid for it and what is the best way to pay for healthcare and all of that. But it should all revolve around this idea of maximizing or optimizing, to steal a word from the tech space, optimizing that relationship or the time available to build a relationship between the clinician and the patient. That is fundamental to the healthcare process, because if the patient does not trust their healthcare provider or their healthcare organization, they're not going to comply with whatever recommendations are made. Maybe they might not even seek out the treatment or adhere to the treatment because they don't trust it. So the relationship is important, that trust is important, and we should be looking maybe for insights and innovations from outside the healthcare industry and relying on some of those experts to come in and bring their solutions, as long as we're all on the same page in understanding what we're trying to do is create a more humanized healthcare experience. So there's that. If you like the show, head on over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. I will link to Mohammed, to his LinkedIn, to Line Dance AI, so that you can go check that out if you want to, especially if you're in the physical occupational therapy space, doing work in the musculoskeletal dysfunction space. And yeah, I think that'll be it. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking about kind of driving home this idea of, okay, it's not all about technology. What do we do to make sure that the technology that we're bringing to the forefront or that we're implementing into healthcare is going to be successful? As you know, last episode that we did last week, talking about why digital health is failing, a big piece of that is because we don't really have it all worked out in one, what it takes to implement it on the behavioral side, but then the whole ROI side. So we'll kind of dive into that a little bit more. Okay, last message here. Organizing an event is hard work, right? The pressure mounts, especially when you're considering speakers. Often the success of an event or maybe even a strategic initiative at a corporate office hinges on the quality and the impact the speaker and the advisor that you select or hire is able to bring to bear for your audience or your company. There's no pressure there, right? So if the speaker or the advisor you choose hits a home run, that's great. You've got yourself a great event, or your initiative at the corporate office takes off. If not, if they flop, then you've got yourself a dud. So I'm sure that if you're in the middle of putting together a healthcare organization, either event, a conference, or you're looking for speakers for your corporate place of business, I'm sure you're spending tons of time, hours even, researching speakers and available consultants to make sure that you have the right fit for your event and your audience. If that is the case, and you're looking for somebody to speak on and to help your organization become focused on what really matters, which is the people delivering care and the people receiving the care, either through your organization or the services you provide, then check out more at speaking.rafisalazar.com, speaking.rafisalazar.com, where you can learn more about hiring me to come speak at your event. Alrighty, until the next time, folks, be safe, be healthy. I will talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Our hope is that you walk away from each episode informed, equipped, and empowered to push the boundaries in your own practice or business. We want to give you the tools to help you build strong, long-lasting relationships with your patients and clients, helping meet their goals, improve their health, and achieve better outcomes. Learn more at www.rehabuppracticesolutions.com. We'll catch you on the next episode.